What happens when Hollywood royalty meets actual royalty and the conversation goes completely off the rails? Today, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that had everyone talking when Meghan Markle sat down with Whoopi Goldberg for what was supposed to be a friendly chat about her latest projects. Instead, it turned into a heated clash that ended with security being called and Meghan being escorted off the set. Before we get into this wild story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think really happened here. The atmosphere in the studio was electric as Whoopi prepared for what she thought would be a straightforward interview. Meghan had been making rounds promoting her new podcast series, and The View seemed like the perfect platform to reach her target audience. The producers were excited, the audience was buzzing with anticipation, and Whoopi had her questions ready. Welcome back to The View. I'm Whoopi Goldberg, and today we have a very special guest, Whoopi announced to the live audience, her signature warmth filling the studio. Please welcome Meghan Markle. Meghan walked onto the set with her characteristic poise, waving to the audience who responded with enthusiastic applause. She settled into the guest chair, adjusting her cream-colored blazer and flashing that practiced smile we've all seen countless times. "Thank you so much for having me, Whoopi," Meghan said, her voice carrying that carefully modulated tone she's perfected over the years. "I'm such a huge fan of the show and everything you represent." "Well, we're thrilled to have you here," Whoopi replied, shuffling her note cards. "So let's jump right in. You've got this new podcast series launching, and I understand it's very personal to you." "It absolutely is," Meghan responded, leaning forward slightly. "This project is about amplifying voices that have been silenced, sharing stories that need to be heard. It's something I'm incredibly passionate about." Whoopi nodded, but there was something in her expression that suggested she was already sensing where this conversation might be heading. "That's wonderful. Now, you've been pretty vocal about your own experiences with feeling silenced. Can you tell us more about that?" This is where things started to shift. Meghan's posture changed almost imperceptibly, her shoulders tensing as she prepared to launch into what sounded like a well-rehearsed response. "Whoopi, I think what people don't understand is the level of scrutiny and harassment that comes with speaking your truth," Meghan began, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "When you're a woman, especially a woman of color, and you dare to challenge the status quo, there are consequences." "I hear you," Whoopi said, but her tone suggested she was choosing her words carefully. "But I have to ask, and I hope you don't mind me being direct here, because that's just who I am. Don't you think that sometimes the platform you have comes with responsibility?" The question hung in the air for a moment, and viewers could practically feel the temperature in the studio drop a few degrees. Meghan's smile faltered slightly, replaced by something that looked distinctly less friendly. "I'm sorry, what exactly are you implying?" Meghan asked, her voice still controlled, but with an edge that hadn't been there moments before. "I'm not implying anything," Whoopi replied, maintaining her professional demeanor. "I'm asking directly. When you have millions of people listening to your every word, don't you think there's a responsibility to be thoughtful about how you use that influence?" "I am thoughtful," Meghan shot back, her composure beginning to crack. "Every single day, I'm thoughtful about the impact of my words. But what I won't do is silence myself to make other people comfortable." The audience was completely silent now, sensing the tension building between the two women. Whoopi leaned back in her chair, studying Meghan's face. "Nobody's asking you to silence yourself," Whoopi said slowly. "But there's a difference between speaking your truth and, well, let's just say there are different ways to tell a story. Are you suggesting I'm lying?" Meghan's voice was getting sharper now, her media training starting to slip. "Because I have to tell you, Whoopi, I expected better from you. I thought you of all people would understand what it's like to be attacked for speaking honestly about your experiences." Whoopi's eyebrows shot up. "Hold on now. I never said anything about lying. But you're putting words in my mouth, and that's not cool." "I'm not putting words in your mouth," Meghan replied, her voice rising slightly. "I'm responding to what you're clearly insinuating. And frankly, I'm disappointed. I came here expecting to have a real conversation about important issues, not to be interrogated." The camera operators were having a field day, capturing every micro-expression, every shift in body language. This was clearly not going according to anyone's script. "Interrogated," Whoopi repeated, her own voice taking on a harder edge. Meghan, I asked you one question about responsibility. If that feels like an interrogation to you, then maybe we need to talk about why that is. Don't patronize me, Meghan snapped, her carefully constructed public persona completely abandoned now. I know exactly what you're doing here. This is the same thing that's been happening to me for years. People asking me to justify my existence, to explain why I deserve to be heard. That's not what's happening here, Whoopi said firmly. But, since you brought it up, let's talk about it. You say you're being silenced, but you've got a podcast, you've got book deals, you've got Netflix contracts. You're on my show right now talking to millions of people. So help me understand what silencing looks like from where you're sitting. The question was direct, unflinching, and clearly not what Meghan had expected. She stared at Whoopi for a long moment, her jaw working as she struggled to formulate a response that would regain control of the narrative. You don't get it, Meghan finally said, her voice tight with frustration. You don't understand the difference between having a platform and being allowed to use it freely. Every single thing I say gets twisted, gets analyzed, gets used against me. That's not freedom, that's performance. Okay, I can understand that, Whoopi said, her tone softening slightly. But here's what I don't understand. If everything gets twisted anyway, why not just say what you mean clearly? Why not just be direct instead of talking around things? And that's when Meghan's composure completely shattered. Direct? Meghan's voice cracked with disbelief. You want me to be direct? Fine, let's be direct. You invited me on this show under the pretense of discussing my work, but what you really wanted was to ambush me with the same tired questions that everyone else asks. You wanted to see me squirm, to watch me defend myself against accusations that shouldn't even need defending. The studio audience was completely silent now, some people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The other co-hosts, who had been quietly observing, exchanged worried glances. This was live television, and things were spiraling fast. Meghan, I think you need to take a breath, Whoopi said, her voice steady but firm. Nobody ambushed you. I asked you legitimate questions that any journalist would ask. If you can't handle that, then maybe you're not ready for this kind of conversation. Don't you dare tell me what I'm ready for, Meghan shot back, leaning forward in her chair. I've been handling conversations like this since before I even met my husband. I've been dealing with people questioning my motives, my integrity, my right to exist in certain spaces. And now you're doing the exact same thing. I am not questioning your right to exist anywhere, Whoopi replied, her patience clearly wearing thin. But I am questioning your victim narrative when you're sitting here as one of the most privileged people on the planet. The words hit like a slap. Meghan's eyes widened, and for a moment she looked genuinely stunned. The camera caught every detail of her reaction, the way her mouth opened slightly, the flash of something raw and angry in her expression. Victim narrative, Meghan repeated slowly, her voice dangerously quiet. Did you just say victim narrative? I said what I said, Whoopi replied, not backing down. Look, I respect your experiences, I really do. But when you're constantly talking about being silenced while literally never stopping talking, people are going to notice the contradiction. You have no idea what you're talking about, Meghan said, her voice rising again. You have no idea what it's like to have every single thing you do scrutinized, criticized, turned into some kind of scandal. You've never had to deal with the level of harassment that I've faced. Whoopi's expression hardened. Excuse me? I've never had to deal with harassment? Meghan, I've been in this business for 40 years. I've been a black woman in Hollywood since before you were born. Don't you dare sit there and tell me I don't know what harassment looks like. That's not what I meant, Meghan backtracked, but it was too late. She'd crossed a line, and everyone in the studio could feel it. No, I think that's exactly what you meant, Whoopi continued, her voice getting stronger. You think your experience is somehow unique, somehow worse than what the rest of us have been through. But here's the thing, and I'm going to be real with you because somebody needs to be. Your problems are rich people problems. The audience gasped audibly. Several people in the front row covered their mouths in shock. This was beyond anything anyone had expected to see on daytime television. Rich people problems. Meghan's voice was shaking now, whether from anger or hurt. It was hard to tell. So because I'm married into wealth, I'm not allowed to talk about racism? I'm not allowed to discuss the mental health struggles I've faced? I'm not allowed to advocate for causes I believe in? You're allowed to do whatever you want, Whoopi replied. But you're not allowed to do it without being questioned. You're not allowed to demand that everyone just accept your version of events without asking follow-up questions. And you're certainly not allowed to come on my show and lecture me about harassment when you've never had to work a day job in your life. I worked plenty before I got married, Meghan snapped. I was an actress. I had a career. You had a role on a cable show that most people never heard of, Whoopi shot back. And even then, you were complaining about not getting enough respect, not getting enough opportunities. Some of us had to fight just to get in the room. So this is about hierarchy. Meghan asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. This is about you thinking you've earned the right to dismiss my experiences because you've been doing this longer? This is about reality, Whoopi replied firmly. This is about you living in a bubble and thinking that everyone else should. Pretend that bubble doesn't exist. I don't live in a bubble, Meghan protested, but her voice lacked conviction now. She was losing ground in this argument, and she knew it. Really? When's the last time you took public transportation? When's the last time you worried about paying rent? When's the last time you had to choose between buying groceries and buying medicine? That's not fair, Meghan said weakly. Fair? Whoopi's voice rose for the first time. You want to talk about fair? It's not fair that you get to sit here and play victim while people who are actually struggling can't even get their voices heard. It's not fair that you get book deals and podcast contracts for complaining about your life, while teachers and nurses and social workers are working 2 jobs just to survive. I never said I was the only person with problems, Meghan argued. But she was clearly on the defensive now. No, but you act like it, Whoopi replied. Every interview, every statement, every podcast episode, it's all about how hard your life is. Well, guess what? Life is hard for everybody. The difference is, most people don't have millions of dollars to cushion the blow. Money doesn't protect you from racism, Meghan said, trying to regain some moral high ground. No, it doesn't, Whoopi agreed. But it sure as hell protects you from a lot of other things. It protects you from having to stay in situations that are genuinely harmful. It protects you from having to smile and take abuse because you need the paycheck. It gives you options that most people don't have. So I should just be grateful and keep quiet? Meghan asked, her voice rising again. I never said that either, Whoopi replied. But maybe, just maybe, you could acknowledge that. Your platform comes with privilege. Maybe you could use that privilege to lift up voices that don't have access to the same opportunities instead of constantly centering yourself in every conversation. I do use my platform to help others, Meghan protested. Do you? Or do you use other people's struggles to make yourself look good? Whoopi asked pointedly. The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Meghan stared at Whoopi, her face cycling through a range of emotions. Shock, hurt, anger, and finally, something that looked like pure rage. How dare you? She whispered, and then louder. How dare you question my motives when you don't know anything about my charitable work, about the causes I support, about the money I've donated? I know what you've told people about your charitable work, Whoopi replied calmly. But I also know that every act of charity comes with a press release. Every donation comes with a photo opportunity. So forgive me if I'm a little skeptical about whether you're helping people or helping your image. That was the final straw. Meghan shot up from her chair so quickly that it rolled backward, nearly toppling over. Her face was flushed, her hands were shaking, and when she spoke, her voice was barely controlled fury. You know what, Whoopi? I'm done with this, Meghan said, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. I'm done with people like you who think they get to gatekeep who deserves sympathy, who deserves to be heard, who deserves to tell their story. You're supposed to be supporting other women, but instead you're tearing me down for the entertainment of your audience. Sit down, Meghan, Whoopi said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension. We're not done talking. Oh yes, we are. Meghan shot back, pointing a finger at Whoopi. I don't have to sit here and listen to you dismiss everything I've been through. I don't have to tolerate this kind of disrespect, especially not from someone who should understand what it's like to be a woman fighting for her voice. The other co-hosts were frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let this play out. The audience was completely silent, watching this train wreck unfold in real time. Camera operators were frantically adjusting their angles to capture every moment of the meltdown. You want to talk about disrespect? Whoopi stood up too, matching Meghan's energy. It's disrespectful to come on my show and expect me to just. Nod along while you complain about problems that millions of people would trade their lives for. It's disrespectful to appropriate the language of actual oppression when you've never known real hardship. Real hardship. Meghan's voice cracked with disbelief. You think what I've been through isn't real? You think the death threats aren't real? You think the racist attacks aren't real? You think the impact on my mental health isn't real? I think you've confused criticism with persecution, Whoopi replied without missing a beat. I think you've confused accountability with attack. And I think you've confused having people disagree with you with being silenced. You don't get to define my experience, Meghan said, her voice getting louder. You don't get to minimize what I've been through just because you think I have too much money to be hurt by it. And you don't get to come on my show and lecture me about understanding harassment, Whoopi fired back. You don't get to act like you invented struggle. Some of us have been fighting these battles since before you even knew they existed. This is unbelievable, Meghan said, looking around the studio as if appealing to the audience. This is exactly the kind of treatment I was talking about. This is exactly why women, especially women of color, are afraid to speak up. Because when we do, we get attacked by our own community. Don't you dare, Whoopi said, her voice dangerously low. Don't you dare try to make this about race when you're the one who's been dismissive. Don't you dare try to hide behind your identity when you can't defend your actions. I'm not hiding behind anything, Meghan snapped. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy of a black woman attacking another black woman for speaking her truth. Your truth. Whoopi laughed, but there was no humor in it. Meghan, half the things you've said publicly have been contradicted by your own previous statements. So which version is your truth? I have never contradicted myself, Meghan said, but her voice wavered slightly. Really? Because I've got a whole team of researchers who would disagree with that, Whoopi replied. But that's beside the point. The point is that you can't handle being questioned. You can't handle anyone pushing back on your narrative. And when someone does, you throw a tantrum. I am not throwing a tantrum, Meghan said, even as she gestured wildly with her hands. I am responding appropriately to being attacked on national television. Nobody attacked you, Whoopi said, her voice rising again. I asked you questions. That's what interviewers do. That's what journalists do. If you can't handle questions, then maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. Maybe I shouldn't, Meghan said, her voice suddenly cold. Maybe I should just go back to my bubble, as you put it, and let people like you control the narrative about who deserves to be heard. Oh, cut the martyr act, Whoopi said, waving her hand dismissively. Nobody's stopping you from being heard. We're just asking you to make sense when you speak. That was it. That was the moment Meghan completely lost it. You know what, Whoopi? You're just like all the rest of them, she screamed, her composure completely shattered. You're jealous. You're jealous that I found a way out, that I found love, that I found success on my own terms. You can't stand that I refused to play by the rules that kept you down for decades. The audience audibly gasped. Several people stood up, not sure if they should leave or stay. The other co-hosts looked mortified. Excuse me. Whoopi's voice was deadly quiet now. What did you just say to me? You heard me, Meghan continued, apparently past the point of caring about consequences. You've been playing the game so long you've forgotten there are other ways to win. You've been accepting crumbs for so long you can't recognize when someone demands the whole meal. Security, Whoopi called out, her voice cutting across the studio. We need security up here now. You're calling security on me. Meghan laughed, but it was a bitter, angry sound. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. The moment I tell you the truth about yourself, you try to have me removed. The truth. Whoopi stepped closer, her voice deadly serious. You want to talk about truth? Here's the truth. You're a spoiled, entitled woman who's never faced real adversity in her life. You married into one of the most privileged families on earth, and then spent years complaining about how hard it was. You've been given every opportunity, every platform, every advantage, and you've used all of it to center yourself in conversations that should be about helping others. Two security guards appeared at the edge of the stage, looking uncertain about how to proceed. Don't touch me, Meghan warned them, backing away. I'll leave on my own. Good, Whoopi said, crossing her arms. And maybe next time you'll think twice before coming on someone else's show and disrespecting them in their own house. This isn't over, Meghan said, pointing at Whoopi again. People are going to hear about this. They're going to know how you treated me. I'm counting on it. Whoopi replied calmly. Because anyone who watches this is going to see exactly who you really are when you don't get your way. Meghan gathered her purse and jacket, her hands shaking with anger and adrenaline. She started walking toward the exit, then turned back. For one final shot. You know what the saddest part is, Whoopi? I actually looked up to you. I thought you were someone who would understand, someone who would support another woman trying to make a difference. But you're just another gatekeeper trying to keep people in their place. And you're just another person who thinks being rich makes you right, Whoopi replied. Have a nice life, Meghan. Try not to let the door hit you on your way back to your mansion. The security guards escorted Meghan off the set as she continued to mutter angrily under her breath. The audience watched in stunned silence as she disappeared through the exit. For a long moment, nobody moved, nobody spoke. Finally, Whoopi turned. Back to the camera, her professional composure remarkably intact despite everything that had just happened. Well, she said, adjusting her jacket and sitting back down. That was something. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll try to process what we all just witnessed. As the cameras cut away and the studio erupted in confused chatter, one thing was clear. This wasn't just an interview gone wrong. This was a complete meltdown, broadcast live to millions of viewers, that would be replayed and analyzed for weeks to come. The confrontation was over, but the fallout was just beginning. So there you have it. The explosive confrontation that had everyone talking. What do you think really pushed Meghan over the edge? Was it Whoopi's tough questions, or was there something deeper going on? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. I want to hear what you think. Was Whoopi too harsh, or did Meghan bring this on herself?